This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. The Pentagon tonight said it has upgraded alert status of U.S. military personnel in Panama. All but essential personnel are being restricted to base or to their homes. In Panama, the opposition presidential candidate was beaten and injured during the day by backers of military strongman Manuel Noriega. Violence broke out as the opposition leaders were riding in a convoy to a downtown hotel. Riot police stood by as their car was attacked. Opposition leader Guillermo Andara was not seriously hurt. Partial official election returns still indicated Noriega's candidate leading, but international observers insist the opposition actually won by as much as 3-1. CBS News reporter Juan Vasquez is on the scene.
As it became more apparent today that General Noriega intends to declare his candidate the winner despite charges of massive fraud, the opposition took to the streets once again to cry foul. Within minutes, Noriega's soldiers came out as well. For the first time in months, they used water cannon and tear gas to disperse protesters. The general seems as determined as ever not to allow the opposition to control the streets, even for a moment. The majority wants U.S. intervention, she said. But don't count on it. Even though the U.S. has a force of 10,000 troops here, it cannot project that force beyond the gates of U.S. bases without being accused of intervention and bully tactics.
What type of confrontation will that be? An almighty power like the United States fighting a humble country like Panama?
By Latin American standards, there is little clear-cut reason to justify an invasion. The Panama Canal is operating normally, no Americans have been killed, and the repression Noriega has unleashed is seen by some neighboring countries as an internal matter that should be settled by the Panamanians without outside interference.
I don't believe that the United States will take that grave risk when they know beforehand that the whole Western Hemisphere will oppose that.
Noriega has made a big show of arming so-called dignity brigades of civilians to arouse nationalist fervor, to send a message that talk of invasion doesn't scare him. U.S. officials insist there will never be an accommodation with Noriega, but as long as he remains defiant, the Bush administration may remain frustrated, trying to use its influence without having to use its force. Juan Vasquez, CBS News, Panama City.
President Bush talked by telephone today with some Latin American leaders. A White House spokesman said the president urged them to take a unified stand against what he called Noriega's, quote, blatant attempts at intimidation.
President Bush condemns the violence now underway in Panama. General Noriega has thwarted the desire of the Panamanian people for democracy by conducting a fraudulent election. He has now escalated this to include violence against opposition leaders, including Mr. Andara. This action underscores that General Noriega does not have the interests of the Panamanian people at heart.
Secretary of State Jim Baker held his first round of talks with his Soviet counterpart in Moscow today, asking for help in Central America and the Middle East. CBS News State Department correspondent Bill Plant is traveling with Baker.
Secretary of State James Baker, in Moscow for the Bush administration's first full-scale talks with the Soviets, got a taste of one-upmanship Kremlin style, as his hosts jumped the gun and announced that the two sides had agreed to resume arms negotiations in mid-June. And Soviet spokesman Gennady Gerasimov didn't stop there. He needled the new administration for delaying talks for so long and proposing that the new session last just 6 weeks.
While diplomats are on vacation, armaments are piling up, new are being developed.
The U.S. delegation had been saving the arms control announcement for Baker and Shevardnadze tomorrow, preferring to emphasize Central America and the Middle East today.
I don't think I'd characterize anything as a surprise, Bill. I think we had some very good discussions. We had some in-depth discussions, particularly on regional issues.
U.S. officials said Baker warned the Soviets that their continued support for the Sandinista government of Nicaragua could result in a flood of Central American refugees to the U.S., which might affect the attitude of Congress toward Moscow. On the Middle East, the U.S. turned down a Soviet offer to hold joint talks with the Israelis, the PLO, and the U.S., and expressed dissatisfaction with Soviet aid to Syria and Libya. Despite all that, U.S. officials painted an upbeat picture of today's discussions, far more so than the Soviets. A new U.S.-Soviet summit was not discussed, but these talks do continue tomorrow. And the surprises may be just beginning as Secretary Baker meets with Soviet leader Gorbachev. Bill Plant, CBS News, Moscow.
More than 10,000 Chinese students came out today to demonstrate for freedom of the press at the communist government-run newspaper and television offices. They are demanding an end to the total censorship that has blacked out news of their protest movement in China's official media. Police made no move to stop them. The CBS Evening News will originate from China all next week with special in-depth coverage of the new face of communism. President Bush is under increasing criticism for not doing enough about Exxon Corporation's disastrous Alaskan oil spill. Among other things, he is criticized for being too lax with Exxon. Mr. Bush and his spokesman insist such criticism is unjustified, but the sting of it apparently is having an effect. Deborah Potter looks at the Battle of the Beaches.
Under pressure from the Bush administration, Exxon today agreed to almost double its efforts to clean up the Alaska oil spill, bringing to 2,500 the number of workers involved in scrubbing the fouled beaches.
It's a very, very significant increase in resources, but it's a big, big problem.
Mr. Chairman, Exxon fully expects to complete the cleanup by September 15th this year.
But that prediction drew a skeptical reaction on Capitol Hill today at a hearing to review the cleanup.
I have the deepest concerns and reservations about the capacity to do it based on what we've seen.
And the commitments that were made have not been kept. The people that have asked for help have not gotten it.
In fact, it's taken Exxon a month to clean less than 2 miles of shoreline. The company's own plan gives it just 4 months to scour another 300 miles. And Coast Guard officials say they may not make it if the slow going on Smith Island is any guide.
I tell you, I could have cried when I saw that beach because I realized 200 men for 10 days, men and women, had worked on that beach, and I could reach down 4 inches and come up with both hands full of oil. I can't guarantee you that we're going to have a cleanup that will suit me by the end of the summer.
Exxon today promised to continue the cleanup next spring if necessary.
Whatever it takes, we do it.
But Congress is urging the administration to keep a close eye on the company's efforts.
Don't let up on them. They've got to meet their responsibilities. They've been dragged kicking and screaming into a position toward a position of responsibility, and they're still not there yet.
Some in Congress warned Exxon today that if the company fails to meet its own deadlines, the government will take over the cleanup and force Exxon to foot the bill. Deborah Potter, CBS News on Capitol Hill.
CBS News has learned that Transportation Secretary Skinner, at White House urging, tomorrow will announce proposed legislation to establish something called an oil spill liability fund. This measure, if approved by Congress, would put a 1.3% fee. I should make it clear this would be a 1.3% fee on every barrel of oil. The goal is to create a $500 million fund for cleanup of future spills. The bill also would increase corporate responsibility. Now, still to come on tonight's CBS Evening News, Richard Schlesinger on the Boston buzzing. And Ray Brady on why you should change your name to Picasso and start painting.
$5,000 is over here now. That's $65,000.
When you grip a Delta faucet, you get more than just water. You get a chance to express yourself. Do it right now, and Delta will foot part of the bill. Up to $35 toward installation costs. Call toll-free by May 31st for rebate details and our free brochure, because now's the time to grab the phone. And a great deal when you get a grip on yourself with Delta.
It took 2,000 years, but a revolutionary discovery is changing the way men think about coloring their gray hair. It's called Just for Men, from the leader in men's hair coloring. Simply apply Just for Men, and in 5 minutes, shampoo out. Your gray is blended away, leaving your natural-looking color. 5 minutes. Here, look at me. Just for Men leaves your hair looking healthy and fuller, and it won't fade or wash out. Just for Men, in the men's hair care section.
When Ocean Spray adds ripe red raspberries to tangy cranberries, something cool and refreshing happens to chicken. New Cran Fruit brand sauces add a cool, refreshing zing to everything.
The day may come when every cooktop, range, and oven will let you clean up this easily. But isn't it nice to know Whirlpool cooktops, ranges, and ovens will let you do it today?
George Bush got elected partly by portraying himself as the tough-on-crime presidential candidate. Now, President Bush is set to announce a series of proposals designed to demonstrate that he's backing up that rhetoric. CBS News White House correspondent Leslie Stahl today was told some of the details.
The centerpiece of President Bush's new crime package will be a stiffening of jail sentences for crimes involving firearms. According to administration sources, the president is considering a proposal to increase the mandatory minimum federal sentence to 15 years for any crime involving the use of a gun, 3 times longer than the current 5-year penalty. Also being considered an even stiffer sentence for crimes involving assault weapons. Aides are urging Mr. Bush to use his crime speech on Monday to say that if a federal investigation now underway determines that semi-automatic assault weapons are not appropriate for sporting purposes, their importation will be permanently banned, and that he will support legislation to ban domestic manufacture as well. The White House was swamped today with calls from NRA supporters, one official saying they're in a blind panic. The president is planning to ask for, quote, a lot more money for law enforcement, including funds for 250 more alcohol, tobacco, and firearms agents to catch criminals, 1,600 new assistant prosecutors to bring them to trial, and up to $1 billion new dollars for prison building to lock them up. Leslie Stahl, CBS News, the White House.
It began with violent death and then shots from the sky at fans leaving Fenway Park and at Logan Airport as the alleged gunman buzzed Boston neighborhoods. Correspondent Richard Schlesinger reports tonight on what one police veteran calls the most bizarre thing that's ever happened around here.
For almost 3 hours, the small private plane swooped out of the night sky over Boston, buzzing buildings, the pilot peppering the city with shots from an assault rifle.
Get yourself under cover. Jimmy, get out. Behind the car.
No one was injured during the flight, but there was at least one close call.
I thought it was just firecrackers going off, but when the gun shells landed at my feet, I realized that he was shooting a gun.
Some eyewitnesses thought the pilot was trying to kill himself.
He could have gone into buildings. There were several times we thought he would go into the Wang building over there. We thought he was just looking for a good place to punch a hole in the ground.
The pilot was identified as Alfred Hunter, a 42-year-old postal worker. His flight, say the police, was the bizarre end to a violent night.
According to police, Hunter killed his ex-wife earlier in the evening in her suburban house. Then, they say, he stole the plane at gunpoint.
It looked to me like an automatic rifle. It had a, what they call, banana clip coming out the bottom of it.
The chaotic flight over Boston caused bedlam for police and air traffic controllers.
He did touch down at one point at Logan Airport and then took off again.
The controllers could not track the small plane, and Boston's airport had to be shut down.
The controllers in the tower cab, with the glassed-in area, felt that at least 4 times the airplane was headed for the tower. On 2 occasions, they did evacuate.
When Hunter finally landed, he was arrested without incident. He landed in the nick of time. There was enough fuel left in the plane for just 5 more minutes of flight. Richard Schlesinger, CBS News, Boston.
President Bush went to Bethesda Naval Hospital today for his first medical checkup as president. He returned to the White House with a clean bill of health.
For generations, it's nourished grandparents, grandchildren, and now their children's children. A breakfast Europeans have enjoyed for centuries, known in America as Kellogg's Mueslix, a natural balance of oats, wheat, rice, corn, barley, raisins, dates, and hazelnuts. Kellogg's Mueslix, 5 grain or bran, what breakfast was meant to be.
Getting out and enjoying yourself, that's what life is all about. And it's easy when you have the best bladder control protection. Depend Undergarments has special layers of absorbency that won't bunch or sag, and elastic legs for a better fit. They're the best protection and the best way for you to get back into life. Hey there.
Get back into life with Depend.
Tell them that you love them.
Teleflora's Mother's Day bouquet, fresh flowers, potpourri, and a ceramic scent pot.
Tell Teleflora right
To send one anywhere, call your local florist.
Where does it hurt?
Here.
For heartburn and gas, your medical answer is Extra Strength Malox Plus. Its doctor-recommended formula neutralizes more than any leading antacid. Ask your doctor about Extra Strength Malox Plus.
The U.S. House of Representatives today impeached federal judge Walter Nixon of Mississippi. The vote unanimous, the charge lying to a grand jury about a drug case. Trial still to come in the Senate, an impeachment trial. A federal court jury convicted Judge Nixon of perjury in this same case. He's behind bars now, but still drawing his U.S. judicial salary. Senate conviction on the impeachment charges would mean removal from the bench. In Norfolk, Virginia today, a 9-year-old boy explained how he cared for 3 younger sisters, including an infant, for 5 days in a house without electricity or water. He said he didn't want to call for help for fear of being beaten. He said he was abandoned by his mother and stepfather, who had been smoking and snorting cocaine. But in the cocaine plague that is sweeping our country, sometimes, unfortunately, the victims are even younger. Correspondent Harold Dow reports what that leads to.
Illinois officials have charged Melanie Green with manslaughter in the death of her 2-day-old child. They say Melanie Green used cocaine while she was pregnant, and that's what killed her daughter.
I'm not sure I see a major distinction between the activities here and an adult giving a 1-year-old child cocaine. You're delivering a controlled substance, a lethal controlled substance, which can cause the death of an infant.
For the babies born into this world addicted to cocaine, often it's a life and death situation. And the problem is growing, creating a new controversy about the responsibilities of pregnancy.
When prosecutors like this one start going after pregnant women for some behavior that allegedly harms the fetus, there's no stopping the state. We will see the formation of prenatal police patrols.
Hospital officials say in the poor communities of New York, 15% of the babies born have cocaine in their systems.
They suffer a lot of neurological problems, and unless there's very, very early intervention, these are the children who are going to populate the special education classes in another 5-6 years.
In Illinois, legislation is being considered that would give the state the power to take custody of an infant addicted to cocaine.
The legislation would provide us the opportunity to get services immediately to a child who is born drug involved, instead of waiting until there's evidence of physical abuse or neglect.
Your mind is just basically on getting high. Nothing else matters.
Experts say the real answer is educating women to stay away from drugs when they are pregnant. Harold Dow, CBS News, New York.
A study out tonight links a common painkiller to kidney disease. The report in the New England Journal of Medicine says that long-time daily users of acetaminophen face 3 times the usual risk of kidney damage. A spokesman said this study does not mean the drug is dangerous when used in moderation, as directed for common pain. The drug is an ingredient in many brand-name products, including Tylenol, Anacin 3, and Atril. Doctors said the results of the test should be considered tentative until there is more study.
You're on your way.
Kids and science can really get together in the right kind of place. So Dow has developed and funded the TouchTech Laboratory here at Impression 5 in Lansing, Michigan.
In this particular experiment, we're going to make a solid out of 2 liquids.
It's a hands-on museum that puts the wonders of science at a child's fingertips.
Here you go, PJ.
And who knows what that could lead to.
Dow lets you do great things.
Guess what? There's no bathroom on the bus.
Relax.
But diarrhea usually comes back.
Took the Imodium AD, didn't you?
Yeah, but just a little cough.
Perfect.
Imodium AD often stops diarrhea with 1 dose.
instead of all those spoonfuls you may need of the leading remedy.
I'm in a rest stop.
You coming?
Nope, I'm fine.
Imodium AD. It can make your first attack of diarrhea your last.
The next time you have a glass of orange juice, tomato, or grapefruit, think about this. You get more of 7 important vitamins and minerals in a glass of great-tasting Sunsweet prune juice. Sunsweet. Here's to your health.
Just this much Cortaid heals more kinds of itches and rashes than all of these. Because Cortaid has a clinically proven healing medicine they don't have. That's why Cortaid is the Itch Aid.
Hundreds of striking coal miners from Appalachia today demonstrated outside a Pittston Company shareholders meeting in Greenwich, Connecticut. The United Mine Workers, with a union local, recently formed an independent shareholders committee to make a proxy fight against company management. That may sound like a sophisticated weapon for a union management dispute, but behind it is an old-fashioned labor war. Bob Fall reports.
In the coal fields of Southern Virginia, it looks like, it sounds like, and it sometimes is a kind of war. Outfitted in camouflage fatigues to show their solidarity, 1,500 striking United Mine Workers are copying the tactics of the 1960s. Their so-called civil resistance has triggered more than 1,000 arrests since the strike began April 5th.
Do you think they can stand it? And you tell us that this tactic's not working? This is nonviolence, and it's working.
Anything we can do to disrupt the flow of coal and do it through the civil resistance, that's what we're going to do.
The strike, though, is more than a peaceful protest. Tires have been slashed, windows smashed, a company house burned.
Well, there's all kinds of rocks being thrown at us, and they put nails in the road. They got jack rocks. You know, just anything they can come up with to try to stop us.
This is not Gandhi fashion. It's not Martin Luther King Jr. fashion. This is old-fashioned violence that's in keeping with the trend of the United Mine Workers of America.
This is also an old-fashioned dispute between a company which says it must streamline to survive, be flexible to compete, and miners who say the company is using competition as a club to bust the union. They are striking not over wages, but primarily over proposed changes in work rules the UMWA says would bring non-union employees into the mines. The company, to compete in foreign markets, says it needs more leeway in scheduling when the mines and miners operate.
They're trying to make them work on Sundays, and that is their God-given right, to not to have to work on Sundays.
Already the strike has crippled local businesses, which nonetheless have rallied to the miners' cause.
These people are the people that we live with. These people are the people that we make our living from, you know. We would love to be neutral, but how can you?
Still, the strike is tearing small communities apart. Some merchants, the company insists, have been threatened. Some families are divided.
One of the local state troopers, who I work with on a regular day-to-day basis, last week he arrested his own brother twice.
The two sides agree only that they will talk with a federal mediator and that this is a test case which will show how much an industry and workforce, which have changed radically in recent years, will have to change again. Bob Fall, CBS News, Carbo, Virginia.
The U.S. Defense Department today scheduled the first test flight of the Midget Man nuclear missile. Launch is set for tomorrow at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. Today, the Air Force launched a Titan 34D rocket from Cape Canaveral. The unmanned rocket carried a secret military payload into space orbit.
Right now, a trip to your favorite store could mean a trip to Florida or just about anywhere in the USA. It's the Holiday Inn Great Vacation Giveaway. Just look for these specially marked Procter & Gamble packages for a chance to win one of 1,000 Holiday Inn vacation packages. And everyone instantly receives the Holiday Inn bonus offer. Buy your first weekend night and get a bonus second night. So don't just sit there. Shop your way to a great vacation.
Dentuaries, it's me, the Fresh Mouth, with some really fresh news. New Super Strength Polident has a minty mouthwash ingredient and now controls tartar for an even better clean. Look, new Polident cleans tough stains, actually helps prevent tartar from building up, and freshens up dentures with that great minty mouthwash ingredient. Fantastic! So listen to Martha. Try the new Super Strength Polident Green. It's a better mouth freshening clean. Ah.
Smells good.
Like a Carolina pine forest. That's Lysol Pine Action. I cleaned this morning. It disinfects and works fast. But the scent lasts for hours.
It's nice, but how'd they get a pine forest in there?
Lysol Pine Action. The clean of pine every time.
Squeeze out Wood Sheen. Wipe on, stain, and protective oil finish in one. Try Wood Sheen from Minwax, the fastest way to a beautiful hand-rubbed finish.
Last night, a Picasso self-portrait painted when he was 20 was sold for the second highest auction price ever paid for any painting. In case you've forgotten, May and November are the mad months for New York art auctions. It's estimated that 2 major auction houses could offer more than $500 million worth of art this month alone. What's going on here? Who's buying all that art? And why? Business correspondent Ray Brady investigated.
1,800,000, 1,900,000, $2 million.
They're bidding up art, and bidding, and bidding. Prices skyrocketing, breaking almost every record in the auction books.
All done at $43,500,000, fair warning.
Including commission, Yo Picasso sold last night for just under $48 million, way beyond its last sale price in 1981.
At that time, it brought something like $5,600,000.
In other words, in just 8 years, it's gone up in value nearly 800%. A lot more than you'll ever get on your bank CD. So for many investors these days, the action's in art, a bull market. From all over the world this month, they're crowding into New York auction rooms, 25% of them from Japan, the new high rollers of art, buying with devalued American dollars. That Frenchman is saying pictures are pricey, and he's right. Andy Warhol's Shot Red Marilyn went for $4 million, $100,000 per square inch of canvas. It's called Number 8, 1950, and it brought $11 million, a lot of money for a painting without a real name.
Who's paying these prices? Well, for some buyers, it seems as if once you've made your pile, a really big pile, you want to get some culture, paintings.
Our clients tend to be entrepreneurial, self-made people. They've built their own fortunes. And when they do something, they do it with real passion.
They sure do, like paying $24 million for this Gauguin. At this auction last night, a record-breaking $204 million worth of art changed hands. But even experts can't agree. Are prices getting too, well, too rich?
There doesn't seem to be anything to stop it for at least a decade at this time.
The first auction where a number of things don't reach record prices, people are going to say, oh, well, the art market, it's all over, and run for the hills.
$3 million. But as long as the world's economy keeps booming, other dealers say you'll have prices like $48 million for one painting? Yo, Picasso. Ray Brady, CBS News, New York.
And that's the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather, see you tomorrow. Good night.
And what should we say for this? 40
I'm Harry Smith.
And I'm Kathleen Sullivan. Tomorrow, why the Panama Canal is so important to this country.
Also, Barbara Orbison remembers her husband, Roy, on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.
When I look at this picture,